All right, guys, it's 12:30 Central here on Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. I'm Bill Murphy, your host. Welcome to Technical Talks, our webinar series we've been blessed to continue for 4 years. And I'm in one of the ASP's locations today. I'm in Kansas City. That's why we have the ASP banner up. And but just to remind you, we're also a quick supply company, Bowman Construction, Supply, and Cascade Geosynthetics. We're blessed to be family owned, and the Hale Holdings family is the largest family owned product supplier across the United States. And we have a lot of customers. This slide needs to be updated almost every day with how many people we have and how much experience we have. And one of my favorite slides to share is this one right here, because it shows our locations. And we've had a lot of you ask us specifically which company is in which state. Get to know these locations. We just added Wentzville here recently in Missouri, just west of St. Louis. Excited to have them on board. And if you're familiar with us, you already know about Bowman and Cascade, but look at the map where we're located now and the areas we serve. And if you see some gray shaded areas that you have projects there, it doesn't mean you can't talk to us. We're still happy to help. We're your trusted site solutions provider. And we have friends that do what we do across the country, and we can help you get set up with people that could help your projects. Even if you're located in one of these red states, red on this map, but you're working on a project in another location, we're still happy to help you. And a reminder that we do have a tremendous portfolio of solutions available. And one of the things that I really like to remind people of is the value we add, not only knowing our products and how to use them and where to use them, but knowing how to get them to you. We've had some conversations even this week with my guests. We've already done a couple presentations here in Kansas City. I'll introduce Joe in a second. But we talked about how we can bring in a truckload of product and keep it in our warehouse or in our yard, depending on what it is. And we can strategically, and I like to say surgically, deliver that to your project right where you need it, when you need it. That takes a lot of the burden off of the general contractor or subcontractor, a lot of worry away from the owner that you don't have products sitting there blowing in the wind or getting stolen or destroyed by bad weather. We just get it, like I said, where you need it, when you need it. And I'm happy to say we have wonderful people in our warehouses, our inside sales, our drivers. It's been a lot of fun for me over the last 10 years. So yeah, there's an announcement. This is my 10th year now with the company, to get to know a lot of the folks that make our company run. And it wouldn't happen if we didn't have other great trusted partners. And we like to brag that we only deal with the best manufacturers in the world, and we bring the best products. We do a very good job of vetting them before we offer them. So if we offer a solution to you, that means we've already put it through the rigorous testing internally, made sure that it's a fit for us. And one of the things that we like is when we get to know our manufacturers and they come to our markets or we go see them where they're at, is growing those relationships so they understand and they get to see a little bit of how we operate. And that's a perfect segue to introduce my guest today, Mr. Joe Kelly from Citygreen. Joe comes to us from Toronto, and he came down to Kansas City yesterday. Already did a couple of lunch and learn and snack and learn, and we're going to have more of those this afternoon and more of those tomorrow. And if you're not one of those people who are lucky enough to meet Joe in person this week, we can fix that. You reach out to us. We'll set up another time for him to come visit, not just Kansas City, any of our locations. And if not Joe, he's got counterparts. He'll talk about that in a moment. But one of the things we love to do with this Technical Talks webinar series, in addition to introducing you to some new solutions or reminding you of solutions you maybe already know about, is to remind you and encourage you to take advantage of those lunch and learns, breakfast and learns, snack and learns, and also to find us at conferences. I'll be speaking at a couple of the IECA, International Erosion Control Association conferences coming up for the Great Midwest, Great Rivers chapter, and for the IECA Mountain States chapter. I'll be speaking to those, and got other conferences coming up in Iowa, like the Iowa Streets and Roads. And I'm not speaking, but we will be exhibiting at Ice Storm Conference. So there's any of those that you think we might be at, ask us. If you invite us to one that we're not already a part of, we'd love to join you. So we love getting the word out. And one of the best ways to do that is handing over the keys. So here goes to Joe Kelly. Take it away, Joe.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that. Before we get going, congratulations on 10 years.
Thanks.
Looking forward to another bunch of decades working with you guys.
Thank you.
Guys, as Bill mentioned, I'm Joe Kelly. I am with Citygreen. A little bit about us, so very similar to ASP. We are a family-owned and run business, multiple generations working within the company, and thanks to our partner ASP, distribution right across the country. That said, let's kind of get right into things here. So what you see on the screen here is what we try and help you guys and or your customers accomplish. So for City Green, the first bullet point there, trees, green spaces, that's always been our main goal, getting trees in urban areas. The rest is what our products do naturally. So stormwater management is a huge concern these days, given the climate that we're experiencing. Our Stratavault will help stormwater management anywhere. Mitigating the heat island effect, obviously a big concern, and meeting canopy targets. There's a lot of North American cities that are putting canopy targets in place, some of them pretty aggressive. So obviously getting trees in those areas is going to help meet those targets. Stratavault, you're all probably familiar with Stratavault. It's our 6th generation strata soil cell. It is a molded one-piece design, as you're all familiar with. Features and benefits are an abundance. The biggest advantage for the installer is the one-piece design, which is going to install at least twice as fast, if not faster, than our competitors. Ease of mobility, you're going to be transporting more product than air, getting it to site. You're able to carry it from whatever mode of transportation to the pit, to the job site extremely easily because of the way the product nests inside each other. All kinds of features and benefits. One of the biggest ones, my favorite, is we are made from 100% recycled content, including ocean plastic, which we'll get into a little bit later. And that includes all of our products.
Do you want to scroll this down? I can make that box bigger if you'd like.
No, that's fine, that are going underground. I mentioned ocean plastic. So we also include ocean plastics in our product, and we're always trying to increase more of that. Believe it or not, it's actually hard to come by, but we're always trying to increase the amount of ocean plastic. Another huge benefit of our Stratavault is the adaptability in the field. Getting it into the pit is one thing, getting it to work around current infrastructure is sometimes another thing. So being adaptable and being able to cut off a leg to make sure that infrastructure can continue on the path it's going and still providing the structure via the Stratavault is a huge advantage. Again, speeds up that installation time, which is going to keep that project on time. We talked about ocean plastics, so we have partnered with a company up in British Columbia who is removing plastic from the Pacific and turning it into regrind that we can build our Stratavault out of. We actually are coming out with a specific Stratavault product that is, as we're calling it, the Ocean Legacy, that is ocean plastic content in that one Stratavault product. So responsible manufacturing, as mentioned, our product is made from 100% recycled plastic. So we're taking as much of the used plastic out of the landfills, not putting them into landfills, and putting them into good use to bring greenery into the gray world. As I mentioned, we have the ocean plastic model that's coming out soon. All of our product is made in North America. Actually, all of our product is made in the US of A, which is great. A couple of examples of our Stratavault. You're probably familiar with the Stratavault 30 and the 45 series. The 28 is our newest one. That's the one with the ocean plastic content. Excuse me. And you can see the layers of load capacity on our product. So the Stratavault 28 and 30 would be for, say, your walkways, your sidewalks, your bike paths. The Stratavault 45 would be for everything else. So Stratavault 45 is going to have the highest load capacity. It's going to give you your vehicular rating, which will cover any hardscape surface. So there's essentially not a hardscape surface that we cannot support. So this gives you an idea of what we're able to supply as far as soil volume within our Stratavault. We're able to get up to 94% soil volume in our soil Stratavault matrix, as compared to, say, a structural soil, CU, rock soil, which is allowing only 20% soil volume. That ratio doesn't really change for structural soil because they need 80% stone aggregate to support that hardscape. So you're able to get a lot more soil, which is what we need for trees. As you guys all know, if we're going to be planting a tree, we want it to live, we want it to hit maturity and give that canopy coverage it's meant to, rather than just put it in a bunch of rocks and hope it lasts a few years. There's no sense in planting a tree if we know it's not going to make it. And an equation that was presented to me a little while ago, comparing soil volume from our Stratavault to structural soil, is basically what type of lung capacity would you want? Would you want 94% lung capacity or would you want 20% lung capacity? kind of puts it into perspective there for the tree.
Yeah.
We're giving them 94% lung capacity or soil capacity as opposed to just 20.
I have asthma, so I really appreciate that. It's a good
Well,
analogy.
I haven't seen a tree with a puffer, but
Big inhaler.
it is a good way to analyze things.
There you go.
And here you see just a bar graph that shows the different comparison between structural soil, rock soil, and the Stratavault.
Leave it. That's the one I was asking about earlier. When I said I didn't see it, I had scrolled past. When I was asking about the bar graph, I
Okay.
think this is a really good comparison because visually it shows how much difference it is if the green is the good spot, the good stuff, right?
Exactly, yeah, and green is always good.
Yeah.
And as I usually tell people in presentations that we're doing live, is imagine a room that we're in. So you're in a boardroom. Ours is about 40 feet by 20 feet. If this is the amount of soil volume you're looking to achieve, my soil cell matrix would be a little bit bigger than this room because we're able to supply 94% soil volume within our soil cell. To get this size, a 20 by 40 foot room worth of soil using structural soil, you're going to need to, fill up the stadium that Mr. Mahomes is going to be playing in tomorrow to get that type of soil volume. So there's a big, big difference. And more is always better than less when it comes to soil volume. You can never provide too much. The tree is not going to say no. The tree roots aren't going to say no to it. Here you see a perfect example of a soil cell matrix. This would be underneath the sidewalk. We could also be underneath that roadway. And you can see how the tree roots and along with the infrastructure would just work its way around and through the legs of the Stratavault, and or you can see on the bottom there our foot plate. So we talked about infrastructure working its way through. So you can see that water pipe there working its way through. So we're able to cut away the Stratavault to make sure that that structure, the infrastructure, can still work down the path that it's going. Obviously, trying to move that water main is going to be a bit of an issue. So it's a lot easier to work our product around that water main issue, or sorry, that water main pipe. The competitors really can't do that. They're actually going to have to eliminate their product rather than just cut it away because there's really nothing for them to cut. So by just putting the bridge connector in place and cutting away the next Stratavault, we're able to get as close as we can to that infrastructure and still supply enough of the Stratavault soil cells to support that hardscape and fill up with the soil volume. And as you can see by that fact there, 95% of our projects have services running through them. It's probably even higher than that, to be quite honest. As you guys know, once shovels hit the ground, we tend to find more things than we thought were going to be there anyway. So 95 is probably on the low side. So all of our product is a minimum H20 load capacity. And you can see here, we do load testing. We pull about every 75 to 80 off the line and do a load test to make sure we're still hitting the load capacity that we're looking for. So as long as we know what your anticipated load capacity is going to be, we can design a soil cell matrix that's going to accommodate that. So whether you're under a bike path, sidewalk, roadway, airport runway, there's not a hardscape surface that our product cannot support.
And it's impressive that you tested that without having a rock cover above it and beside it. A lot of people have to have that compacted rock under and around and beside and on top before they could even consider testing it because it would crush it. You're testing it without anything on top of it.
Actually, that's a great point, Bill. Thanks very much. By putting the hardscape surface on top, we're actually just adding to the load capacity of our tested product.
Yeah, spreading it out.
And as you can see here, we just don't test one, we'll stack them because a lot of times we're not just putting one soil cell level into place, we're stacking either on a foot plate or multiple levels of Stratavault. So we test it the same way that it would go into the ground. Awesome. As you can see here, the typical matrix and the picture up in the top left gives you a great idea of load displacement. So we mentioned earlier that our product can be cut. So if you need to lop off a leg, you can to let that water main go through. And because of the bridge connections of our product, and you can see how it's all connected there, that downward load capacity is going to be shared with the cells wherever that downward load is coming from. It'll be going from this cell to his friends around him to pick up all that load. So it's a shared load. So even with the highest load capacity in the sector that we have, we're not even probably coming close to what our product is capable of holding up. Off to the right there, you just see it again. It's just a shared load, taking that load and just dispersing it down to that compacted base. So a new product that we have coming out is our side panels. So one of the things that we're able to do for you guys that our competitors can't is we're able to be used as a water tank system. Because our product is a molded one-piece design, it stands up on its own. We don't need the dirt to keep us upright. Our product stands up on its own. So because of that, we can be used as a water tank system. So rather than filling it with soil, you just wrap it in a liner. In this case, we would have our side panels on it to give it more durability, add more lateral strength to it. And now you can take whatever the anticipated precipitation is, the rainfall for that area for the year, build your stormwater tank to whatever size you want. And again, because of our multiple foot plates, adaptability and sizing, you're able to build that water tank to pretty much any size that you want. Or as I like to, take a quick jab at Bill, whatever the engineers come up with when they're doing their mathematics. And the nice thing is you can build it a little bit bigger and just leave that water in there and slowly disperse it into the stormwater system. So the current system doesn't get overwhelmed when we have these quote unquote, 100-year events that are coming, a couple times a year, it seems these days. So great addition to our current family. Another addition that we're bringing out is our tree bit soil sensor. So this has been on the board for a little while. We originally came up with the idea from one of you guys, so thank you very much. What it's designed for is to go into the pit and be able to monitor the moisture content. So we want to make sure, especially out of the gate, when we're the first few years into a tree planting, which is the essential part for a tree, we want to make sure that it's getting the water level and the moisture content that it needs to, to make sure that it's going to be a healthy, happy tree. So the sensors are going to be coming in different lengths, 12, 24 inches, up to, I believe, 36. It's going to be inserted into the pit, and it's going to be Wi-Fi enabled. So you'll be able to have someone, sit at their desk and just click on and check out exactly what's happening in the various tree pits that you have going on to make sure that we're getting enough we're getting enough moisture into that soil cell matrix to make sure that tree is going to survive. A battery life we're anticipating is about 5 years, which is probably more than actually we need. As I said, it's the first couple of years that are the most important for a newly planted tree, especially the first year. So if we can make sure that it's getting the moisture that it needs, we're off to a great start. A great thing for not only you guys, but for municipalities and cities, that they can have one person pretty much monitor the entire matrix that they've got the soil sensors in. So whether it's just, 1 or 2 pits down on this avenue, and then maybe a couple more over here, or whether it's across the entire city. Because it's Wi-Fi enabled, it's just a couple of clicks, and you're able to monitor whatever tree pit you're looking to do. A couple of other new products we have coming out are curb inlets. So this is just another way to capture, as you can see in the picture there, capture the stormwater. We have obviously the grate on the top, so we're able to filter out all of the stuff that we don't getting in there. And again, the body of it is made from 100% recycled product, so we're being as earth friendly as possible here. You can see how it works here, and as we saw in the picture earlier, we can stack multiple ones side by side when we do get those large rain events. As you guys are familiar, we also do tree protection, street furniture, if you will. So here we have our tree grates and our tree guards. We obviously have a couple of different ones. One of the features that we can offer is, oh, sorry about that, guys, is our tree grates, we can custom make them. Actually, we have a project out in Denver where I think we did some recently where they had to be custom made. So we're able to do that for you. And we have a few different models to make sure that we're able to get you exactly what you're looking for.
I have no idea why that other picture did not show up. You have to hit it again.
Oh, there we go. So we talked earlier about soil volume, and we talked about how rock soil is not providing as much soil volume as we would like. So you can see here in this picture, there's an equation underneath the rock soil of 80% rock, 20% soil. There's nowhere near enough soil volume in there for a happy, healthy, mature tree. And because there's so little soil volume, that tree root system is going to want to start maneuvering as much as it can to find more soil, more nutrients, more water. But again, because of the 80% amount of rock that's supporting that hardscape, it's going to be compacted, 95, 96, 97% compaction rate to support that hardscape. So when the tree roots are trying to maneuver through it, looking for more soil, it's going to be difficult for them to do that because of that heavily compacted rock. As you can see in the other picture with our Stratavault, we're able to provide 92 to 94% soil volume and still support whatever that hardscape is. So as I mentioned earlier, if you imagine the room that we're in, about 20 by 40, if that's what the soil volume we're looking for, a Stratavault soil cell pit is going to be a little bit bigger than this room. If you're looking to get this much soil volume using structural soil, Mr. Mahomes wouldn't be playing Thursday night because we'd be using that football field to get that much soil volume using rock soil. So the value of our product is certainly there up front once you factor in the amount of soil volume that you're going to need either using our product or if you're using structural soil. The square foot pricing may be a little bit in their favor out of the gate, but once you factor in the size of that pit that they're going to need compared to the much smaller size of the pit that we're going to need, that dollar value up front definitely turns to our favor. And down the road, it's a no-brainer, which we'll kind of show you in this quick little video here.
I think we need to push play on this one because it doesn't auto play. Are you ready?
Yep.
And by the way, I'm telling you on time, we're not even half hour in. You're doing great. We'll have to do some chatting at the end.
You can see the circles here. So on the left is just standard planting into what we call concrete coffins. Off to the right is planted in Stratavault. And you can see during the time lapse, ours is growing nicely, providing a nice mature round canopy. And off to the left there, doesn't look like actually much change. Well, actually, we'll play that one again real quick, hopefully. There we go. So you can see they start off identical, and it doesn't take long for the trees planted in the Stratavault that have plenty of soil volume to keep growing and growing, whereas in what we're looking at the standard planting, which is just into a square 4x4 concrete coffin of soil, nowhere near enough soil volume and or nutrients, so the trees are stagnant in their growth or just not growing at all. Here we see another example. So the conventional approach on the left, that was the standard planting. And again, you can see it in the parking lot there, just a concrete coffin about 4 feet square, probably about 3 or 4 feet deep as well. Off to the right, a tree planted in the same parking lot using Stratavault. And given enough soil volume, you can see how well that tree is doing. And to give you an idea of return on investment afterwards, we talked about it, beforehand, comparing it to structural soil where it comes in our favor, you can see the difference in that tree worth. So when they come from the nursery, obviously the cost is the same, but down the road, the difference is going to be significant to say the least. So you're looking at a $17,000 difference in value of trees. The one tree that's not doing so well, he's been there for quite a while, 15 years in, whereas the one in Stratavault, 4 years in, he's pretty much doing what we want him to do by providing the canopy coverage, and his dollar value is much more than what he was when he first came into play. So the ROI for using soil cells is there up front, obviously also there down the road when we look at the trees. So a couple of shots of some projects that have recently been done, supplied by ASP. I believe this was in St. Louis, correct? So you can see them stacking up the Stratavault here. So I'm not sure if we can see the base of it, but we've got our 200 mil foot plate down at the base, and then 2 levels of Stratavault on top. So the assembly of this here is going really quickly, really easily. As you guys know, our product assembles very quickly, very much like Lego, snaps together. If need be, can come apart just like Lego too. Hopefully we don't have to take it apart, but you can see how quickly it does go together here. So this is the after shot. Actually, let's see if we can find, there you go. That's the before shot there. And as you can see by the picture, even on a slope surface, our product works no problems at all. Our foot plates, we do have holes in them for when we do get, say about a 7-8% grade or higher, you'd probably want to spike them down. But for this one, I don't believe they did. It wasn't that much of a slope. And you can also see here too that it was tiered, different levels where that fellow's walking is a little bit lower than the level up beside him. You can see it a little bit better there maybe. And you can see the finished product right here. So where that curb is, that's the step. So we're underneath that sidewalk, supporting support for the sidewalk, underneath that bike lane in the road, supporting obviously the bike lane and or vehicular traffic that may come into that bike lane. Hopefully not while there's a bike there.
Well, Go back to that one if you would, because we're really good on time. One of the interesting things here is to the average Joe, the average pedestrian who's passing through here, they have no idea the value of those soil cells down below that are supporting that sidewalk and that bike lane, that there's such great space for those tree roots to grow and be healthy. This looks just like any other streetscape. So for the people who make the decisions on this, it's not an aesthetic thing that you're going to see day one. That you're going to, like a building, you could put a brick facade or some cool lighting on that and show it off to everybody the very first day. What you're showing off here is going to be in the next 10, 15 years, maybe even 5. We've seen it 4 on some of these slides. You're going to see that impressive tree growth. So a lot of times when projects are designed, they show a rendering. I mentioned this yesterday. They show a rendering what this is going to look like someday. Well, landscape architects show developed trees, beautiful trees and shrubs and flowers on their rendering. And then when you build a project, if it's new plantings, they don't look like that yet. So you'd hope they look like that in a few years if everything goes well. But for these trees, it's not until 10 or 15 years later that a lot of people identify problems, that they see those struggling trees or dead trees. And in hindsight, it would have sure been nice if someone had the foresight to put in something like structural soil cells to benefit future generations, to benefit future users. So for this, they drive by and they see the trees that are new as they're planted. They won't be as impressed until 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And these trees do great. Where in that same community across the street or down the road, if they have projects that didn't use soil cells, then they'll have that aha moment of the amazing difference.
Yeah, unfortunately, we learn by our mistakes. So yeah, we have to make a few mistakes before we catch on. But hopefully we do catch on. And hopefully, 5 or 6 years down the road, we can update these slides with the pictures, what they currently look like.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we'll definitely see the difference. But to Bill's point, something else we don't see that we're accomplishing here is the stormwater management side of it. With all of these soil cells underground, all that soil underground, and then all the root systems that are going to be increasing as these trees start growing, we're able to capture all that stormwater underground and not have it sit on the surface. It's going to penetrate either whether it's a permeable surface, through the openings on the tree grates, a catch basin, curb inlet, however we're getting that water into the tree pit, it's going to be absorbed by that tree pit. So it's not standing water on the ground, even when we have large events, which these days we're getting some weather anomalies, shall we say. So we are getting more and more rain events. So to Bill's point, something that we don't see is how these soil cells are able to help stormwater management as well.
Before you go on to the next slide, because that's all we have left is to walk through that project. Joe, I was going to remind you of something you said last night at dinner that I thought was interesting. With your background being in construction, all aspects of construction from beginning to end on so many things above ground, like I mentioned, the brick facade or lighting, anything on the side of a building, you have experience with that. You said something last night that stuck with me, and you said you spent your career doing all these construction things above ground. You thought it was time to maybe do something below ground that people don't see and aren't as impressed with, but you feel better about it because you're doing something good to give back and make a positive difference.
Absolutely, absolutely. I did mention to Bill, my background is been in sales business development, but it's been on construction products ground up. Pretty much everything to build houses, buildings, you name it, I probably had my hands on at one point. When the opportunity came up to connect with Citygreen, and as Bill says, provide a product to you guys that is going to better the world. It was just really exciting to be able to do that. So it's not just monetary gain these days anymore for myself, my clients, my manufacturer that I work for. It's actually helping bring greenery into a gray world, helping you guys bring greenery into the gray world, helping your clients do that. Not only just because we're using recycled plastic in our product, but because of what we're trying to accomplish. And again, Citygreen's main goal has always been getting trees into urban areas, which is a huge plus. As you guys know, there's multiple benefits to it. We're not just mitigating heat on effect, but it's been proven on studies that more greenery in areas that people are in, the better moods that we're in just because of the greenery that surrounds us.
There is a quality of life aspect to that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And there's been tons of studies at various universities that actually back that up. It's not just a couple of sales guys saying that. Then there's tons of other values too. The amount of emissions from various vehicles on the road that those trees are absorbing, it's just countless tons on an annual basis, which turns into dollars basically that we're helping remove these toxins from the air, or I should say the trees are actually helping. And then as you saw earlier, the value of those trees, it just makes, in this street alone, these trees right now are probably worth $500 to $1,000. 5 years from now, you can probably add, 10 times that amount to it. So the benefits of planting trees is huge. We don't think about it. We don't really, see it all. As Bill says, a lot of it is hidden underground, and the benefits that come from it are also out of sight, out of mind. But I think when we look down a street and don't see any greenery, it definitely stands out to us. It's like, oh, okay, what's wrong with this picture? As opposed to seeing a nice tree-lined street where we're all in a better mood, and that's the area that we want to go down, as opposed to, the area without trees that doesn't look very inviting at all.
I don't know who it was. I apologize if it was somebody in the audience to give credit to. Somebody said to me, gosh, I really wish I could remember who it was. When little kids draw pictures of a family or draw pictures of home or whatever, it seems like inevitably they all draw a little house. They might put a door or window on it, and they'll show mommy, daddy, or whatever your situation is. I'm not trying to get into that. They'll show the family members, maybe a dog if they have a dog, and they almost always add a tree. And what's interesting is some kids maybe live in an apartment, or maybe they live in a place that doesn't have trees. I lived in a trailer park for part of my childhood, in an apartment and several homes. But maybe they don't live in a place that has a tree. But if a kid pictures, you have them draw a picture of what they think a family or home looks like, it's like they almost always have at least one tree by the house, which is kind of neat. And so we owe it to them. So we talked that we could do the kumbaya, trees are great and we need to do them. But what's really going to connect this for the decision makers, as you said before we started this webinar, is the stormwater. We can't overlook the stormwater component, because the decision makers at the city or whatever whoever the owner is might be doing it because of stormwater regulations. At a minimum, like we heard from the LA yesterday, people might just put in a certain number of little trees and not even care how they do, just so they can say they did it.
Mhm.
But if we make them care more about the soil quality and the water quality, then we can sneak in the healthier trees, as long as we connect it to that stormwater regulation. That component's going to help them justify the added expense.
Absolutely, and it's not really an added expense.
Yeah, you're like, don't say that. Well, it is up front to them.
If
They
we're
have to be honest about the bottom line.
this is true. Well, we have to be able to justify the bottom line, and that's where we talk about the ROI. If you're looking at putting in trees, there's not a reason to not think long term. Um, Trees have a pretty long life expectancy, so why won't we want them to live, to maturity, which could be, excuse me, minimum couple decades to a couple hundred years, depending on the species of tree. So why wouldn't we want them to be around for that length of time, rather than just a couple of years?
Yeah.
There's no dollar value in just planting a tree every few years, going back, and again. And as Bill said, the amount of
Keep focus there.
the amount of benefits that we're getting is going to be huge. The stormwater management side of it is just a huge dollar value savings by putting the tree roots and the soil down there. As I said, we're taking a huge load off of our existing stormwater system that's getting inundated when we get these type of weather events.
One of the Q&A questions came from one of our regulars. He always likes playing Stump the Chump. Just kidding, Donald. But one of the things that he'd asked about, these trees, are they too close to the building? Are they going to interfere with the building? Guys, we could do that all day. You could say, well, then don't have trees. I'm not trying to be harsh on Donald, but the species selection is important. That's why we either have an arborist or landscape architect involved that knows what the expectation is from the owner and whoever is going to be the stakeholders to select the correct tree, for two reasons. One, we want it to thrive and survive in that area, and not just be put in there and struggle and die. But the other is, what's it going to look like 10 or 15 years from now? What kind of maintenance is it going to require? Some trees do require maintenance, others don't. Can I segue to this next project then? So landscape architects being involved.
Actually, let's stay here for just a second.
I'm glad. Welcome back.
So as Bill said, between the team at ASP and the Citygreen team, we have people that can work with you on recommending a tree species, recommending the soil mixture to make sure that tree is getting the nutrients it wants, and we can also, again, with our friends at ASP who have the product at their warehouses, we can put in a root barrier, a root director, to keep those roots going where we want them to, or more importantly, not going where we don't want them to. And as we saw, sorry, Bill, I'm going the wrong way here.
Here.
Nope, I guess I'm not going anywhere. You can see the amount of soil cells underneath there. So there's plenty of area for those tree roots to go. And we really like shared pits. Sharing is caring, right? So shared pits, the tree roots are going to take more advantage of all the nutrients in that soil, and absorb, 80, 90% of the nutrients in that shared pit, as opposed to one tree per pit. So this is a great example of shared pits. It's one giant shared pit, and there's plenty of soil volume for these trees. Unless they're, some type of oak species that the roots are just going to go crazy, which looking at these trees, they're obviously not. But because of the amount of soil volume in the soil cells underneath, we don't have to worry about them pushing up against the foundation of the building, or going out further into under the roadway where there aren't any soil cells, because there is enough soil volume for them. And in this case, we do have our root barrier to keep the roots going in the directions that we want them to go.
So Donald's concern was more about the branches, not the roots. He's a little concerned about people on the sidewalk riding bikes and walking, but
Well, that would be making sure that we get the city pruners out on a regular basis.
continuing on to a project that I wanted to show you guys that I just visited a couple weeks ago. This is Denver, Colorado. Some of you have heard about it. This is what's called 16th Street Mall. Cars don't drive on it, but buses can. This is pedestrian traffic. This is very well used outdoor space, and it's going through its second complete revamp, revitalization, and this one is permanent. So they've planned ahead. Talk about people who invest now for future generations. There have been years of meetings and planning with a lot of different stakeholders, a lot of different designers in the Denver community to improve this area. And when I say improve the area, I mean quality of life, I mean the soil, the water, the utilities, the traffic flow, all the land use. And there's tremendous investment from Downtown Denver Partnership, City County of Denver, everyone that has any kind of a stake in Greater Colorado and Denver itself has been involved for years. And I'm going to do a presentation at IECA, the International Erosion Control Annual Conference in February in Richmond, Virginia, where I'll do a deep dive on this project. But one of the things I want to connect to what we've already said are shared pits. So here's a place where as often as possible, they'll put in as many cells as they possibly can for supporting the plaza, the street, the sidewalk, and also allowing that soil and air and water to have a place for the roots to thrive. So rather than just be over compacted soil like we talk about tree coffins, any trees that get put into here are going to be able to thrive and have the roots grow as much as they need for their species to get to the size they need to be. But the other part of it is that the utility corridors are also protected and the sidewalks are protected. Those roots aren't having to upheave any of the plaza, any of the sidewalk to try to get air or water. So this was a tremendous investment. And beyond this picture here, and I'll get into some other ones, the way they get water into these soil cells is pretty remarkable. There's a combination of solutions from curb inlets to permeable surfaces. They even in the street itself put grooves into a concrete base they put as the sub base for permeables or for pavers. So any water that goes through the pavers will follow those grooves and feed out to the tree pit areas. We've worked closely with the GC and general contractors on this, and that's Bowman Construction Supply that's handling this one. And as you can see, you're downtown. I mean, there is nowhere to go. This is as built as you can get as any downtown can be. Wherever you're at, whatever city you live in or whatever city you work in, you can imagine your own places where you would run into this situation. Utility conflicts have been a tremendous concern, but it's been real easy to accommodate because we have a modular system. If we were stuck with a large rectangular system, we would have to either scrap it, rebuild it, custom fit it, and it would be a tremendous expense and delay to the project. They're doing one block at a time down there. They're actually kind of disturbing more than one block at a time, but they're trying to phase this as they go. This is where we add value in bringing in containers full of the Stratavault parts, and then we strategically deliver only what they need for the number of units they're ready to put in the ground when they need them on site, because there's nowhere to store product. There's no big yard right next to this. It's not like a big DOT highway project where they have a big area to stage equipment and materials. They only need a straight truck to bring what they need where they need it. This is protected by a fence from pedestrian traffic. I have some other pictures that we didn't include today. I might flip over and get into some of those. But these businesses are open, and some of these businesses, that's their primary access onto the 16th Street Mall. So they've got to be able to get pedestrians in and out of their facility safely.
And to further Bill's point about being in such a downtown core congested area, tight spaces to work within, getting the product to the site, whether it's from Bill's warehouse, from his yard, or from an offsite yard, it's easy to transport to get to site because you can use small vehicles. You don't need a large transport truck to deliver to the job site with our product because you're transporting more product than air. As Bill said, it's modular. It's going to stack just like Russian nesting dolls. Really easy to deliver and get to small areas of job sites where you don't want to take up more space than you have to.
That's a good point, Joe, because if you've ever driven downtown Denver, especially now that this project's happening, traffic is a nightmare.
It's difficult, yeah.
It's a lot of one ways. We even have people who live there who don't want to drive down there.
That's why they have so many e-bikes.
So here's a place where we talked yesterday during one of the presentations with a landscape architect. We can interconnect these cells where the trees are located, even if they don't continue Stratavault for the entire length of the block for whatever reason. The water can still get transfer in between and can be conveyed through corrugated plastic pipes. So we got drainage tile through this the full length of the block. Why does that matter? What we found historically in Denver was some building owners who were responsible for watering their tree did a tremendous job, and others didn't know it was their job and didn't do it. So that sensor that we talked about, the tree bit, that'll come into play. But in a place like this, it makes it more fair to every tree to get a chance to survive and thrive versus just one tree that is lucky and has an owner like Joe who's going to do a great job keeping an eye on it versus an owner like Bill that forgets stuff. So as you see these drainage tiles, they'll either move those out of the way. If they have to cut them, the water's still going to pass from one tree to the other. This whole system is interconnected, so it's all going to thrive together. And I tell you what, this is the last picture we have, and this is a still picture. I took this one this summer during a tour with ASLA, American Society of Landscape Architects, and I snuck in as a civil engineer. But some friends of mine at Stantec and Dig Studio, they gave presentations about the early history that came up with the design of even the aesthetic, the way this looks. It looks like a diamond back. This has themes that tie it to the history of Denver and the state of Colorado. And there's so much more that you don't see here that I heard on the tour. They were literally moving planters around with that Bobcat loader. They were moving pallets, planters. The lamp posts you see there have LED lights in them, and they can coordinate those with either the Colorado Rockies, Denver Broncos, whatever events going on down in the area. Those can be themed. And you see the trees that are already in place there on phase one as they're opening this up for pedestrians and removed all the chain link fence. This system is designed to have all types of modalities on it other than airplanes and trains. But this is going to have, as you see, a pickup truck in there delivering stuff. If you look in the back of that picture.
Good word, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. Modalities. It surprised me. I'm going to write it down, and that's my word of the day. I'm going to try to use it this afternoon when we do more presentations. Anyway, they're delivering stuff and driving on these pavers, and the buses are going to be able to run on these pavers. So they had to make sure our system was designed for a runaway truck or a bus. What happens if they get out of the area they're supposed to be in because this is so open and free? Well, the Stratavault units themselves had to be designed to handle bus load above them with the permeable pavers, and so did the tree grates, and that was a tremendous deal. I have a video I'll show here in a second. When I walked the property, the tree grates are invisible. They're invisigrates, so they have permeable pavers on part of them, so you don't even realize it's part of a tree grate that's open, covering that open area that they put the ball of the tree in. And then around the tree itself, we have those collars that can be cut away as the tree grows. The rings can be removed. It's just tidy and neat.
Well, actually, before we flip back there,
killing me, Smalls.
The other nice thing here is, if you can imagine, when we see tree roots heaving up from underground, that's because they don't have enough soil volume. If that were to happen here, all of this beautiful design, all of this beautiful hardscape work that's been done would be heaving up. But we don't have to ever worry about that happening with the soil cells. The Stratavault underneath there because the soil is there for the tree roots, and the tree roots aren't going to go anywhere except within that soil cell matrix below. The other nice thing too, as Bill was mentioning with the tree grates, with all this foot traffic, there's going to be some ADA compliance issues when you do have some heaving. We don't have to worry about any heaving. Thus, we don't have to worry about, instead of thus, let me use ergo, seeing it's a thesaurus type of day.
Fancy.
Ergo, we don't have to worry about any ADA type of issues, which is a growing concern, especially for areas like this where we have an anticipated, huge amount of traffic flow of pedestrians, whether it's just people walking, people taking their bikes, people with wheelchairs. There's going to be, we do see the vehicles here, but there's going to be much more foot traffic here than anything else. So we always want to make sure that we're taking that into consideration too, which again is something that our product, along with our street furniture, is helping accomplish.
Guys, I want to remind you that everybody that attends this is going to get a survey sent to you from Madeline Kreitler, and there will be PDH certificates available for everyone for your continuing education. As always, you have our contact us and all the ways to get us. Everybody just Googles it, so you're probably not taking a picture of that with your phone. And I'm going to switch over to those videos, but before I get out of this presentation, I want to let you know we've already scheduled our next Technical Talks webinar, and that'll be in this building in Kansas City again with a Tensar rep, and that's Wednesday, October 9th. You can use your phone right now and scan that QR code on your screen and register to get in, and don't be left behind. So with that, I'm going to exit this PowerPoint, and I'm going to try to hopefully not mess this up. I want to show you a video that I just took. Make sure you guys can see this. I'm going to narrate the video.
And it's one of the coolest projects that we as Citygreen have been involved with. There's just so much going on and so much being accomplished in this project.
You want to narrate it? Because I was going to
No,
narrate it. You
no,
wanted me to narrate it.
by all means, go
You're
ahead.
just excited. You want to
Yeah,
chime in there.
exactly.
Let's see if it
go too
plays.
fast.
And there's a little delay. There is. So I'll narrate this. I don't think I have the audio turned on. I was walking fast, but I was just out there a couple weeks ago, like I said, and they've opened it up. Sorry about the finger in front of the camera. They've opened this up to where you can see what we haven't shown yet in the slide. This is placemaking. So Chris at Dig Studio during the ASLA tour talked about placemaking, and that's not something I learned in engineering college. So placemaking is fantastic in thinking about how this space is going to be used and how the ownership is going to be felt. You can see the tree grate. You actually can't because it looks like pavers right around them except for the little metal collars. These are benches, and this is a nod to the trout in the streams, and they want people to gather here. And what's really cool is when they talk about it and they show concepts, you may be skeptical or you may not fully appreciate what's about to happen. But I got to witness it, folks. And when I was out there, I have another video to show you. When I was out there were people who were literally using it. I mean, they were enjoying it and they were hanging out together. And it was a kumbaya moment that I absolutely loved. And it made it all come together. Let's see if this one will play as well. Yep, there it goes. But just another video down in another block. Shows the benches, shows planters, trash cans, light posts, trees, and it just all ties together. And you can't tell this just got opened. I mean, this feels like a magical place that's been around for a while. Restaurants are thrilled. They're getting people out on patios again. But you can see people walking around talking about it, interacting with the space. And I won't do nearly as good a job as Chris at Dig Studio and Bill Vitek did, Gretchen and all those folks. And my friend Maddie at Stantec just explained the history of all the time that went into planning before they even did engineering plans, what they wanted to accomplish here. This beehive is just fascinating. It talks about community and colonies, and there's educational signboards on there. There's honeycomb shaped shade structures. And the way they tied this all together with themes and messaging, it makes it a healthy, happy place. It really does. There was even a group on the other side of the beehive. I tried not to show them, so I'm not getting religious, promoting their faith, whatever that was, and getting conversations going. But that wouldn't have happened if they didn't have a safe place to gather like that. That's just one example of many that we have, and I'll go back to maybe end with this, the opening slide, so it'll give you a chance to just reiterate your bullet points. I'll go to the Q&A here first before we do this ending.
One real quick, that just touches on what we were saying earlier about how bringing greenery into urban areas is just putting everybody into a better mood. So we're not just helping the environment by removing CO2 from the air or absorbing more of that stormwater. We're actually helping people too. Hopefully, helping people get into better moods, which we can all, take advantage of.
Tom Fasenic, yes, and asked and answered on the not upheaving the sidewalks. And that's a great question. Glad you asked it. You probably asked that earlier, and I just now saw it on the Q&A. But I wanted to help Joe Kelly land on a couple of his talking points here that he wanted to make sure we go away from the key ideas. And sometimes it helps to go back to the beginning, and that is to recap some of the things that he's already explained. I think this would be a good slide for us to end on.
So the first two are the biggest ones for us. As mentioned, always bringing trees into urban areas is the main goal for Citygreen. Stormwater management is a huge goal, as you guys know probably better than I do, for a lot of people these days, for you guys, for your clients, for a lot of cities, municipalities, just because of the ever-changing climate that we're in these days. So being able to capture all that stormwater, take it off of that hardscape surface, bring it into the soil pit, put it to use, have the tree roots absorb it, have the soil absorb it, and then get some benefits from all that stormwater with healthy, happy, mature trees. The other thing too is we can tie in overflow below that into either an existing stormwater system, which Mother Nature with the tree roots and soil have now filtered that stormwater, less work downstream for the system, or we can actually put a water tank system underneath our soil cell. Because our product is freestanding, stands on its own, we don't need the dirt, as mentioned earlier. We can be used as a water tank, as we touched on when we were talking about our new side panels. So you can have the best of both worlds, retention and detention, all in one pit. And you've got your soil cell matrix feeding the tree roots, and then you would have a permeable layer below that. You would have a void soil cell matrix that's your water tank system. Whatever isn't absorbed into the soil cell matrix will leach its way into the water tank. And again, we can bring that wherever we want into the existing stormwater system, maybe into another softscape area a little bit further away, or even just leave it in there and let it permeate right back up into the soil cell. So there's all kinds of benefits that we can take from Stratavault and all kinds of things that we can utilize it for, not just healthy, happy trees, all kinds of different uses.
You know, we do have a few more minutes here, and we're going to end when we end this recording. We'll save this to our YouTube channel. That you guys, when you get the email from Madeline with the survey, you'll also get a link to that. Please make sure you reply back to her with any questions you have that didn't get asked today that you may have afterwards, and then we will work with Citygreen to make sure we answer all those questions in writing. So you'll get your PDH certificate, you'll get all of the asked and answered questions in writing, and then if we have any supporting docs that we decide to send out with it, you'll get those as well. But I have just a few minutes, so I want to tell you a story. I was in a city. They asked me not to say which one because we were dealing with an issue with some unhoused people, and the city public works person who works for green infrastructure took me down to a busy intersection in downtown. We pulled off some covers and they showed me some structures they had. And this goes to our inlet filter side, but I'll connect it to the tree side. And it was an inlet on a curb on a street that had nasty stuff in it. Soiled human clothes, dirty syringes, some of the bad things you would expect from some big cities. And it's getting into smaller towns now. It's a quality of life issue and a safety and public health issue. They asked what we can do about it. We talked about inlet screens. We talked about filters. We talked about connector pipe screens and things we could do to keep that from going down into the waterway. And we developed a green infrastructure truck that can actually pull the covers off, vac that stuff out, has some tools on there so they can go hands-free, and it keeps people safe. While we were down there, and this is where it's all going to connect. Super hot. It was in the summer, blazing hot. It was a downtown city area where we had buildings, streets, sidewalks, parking lots. Everything felt paved. And as we turned to walk across the street, we were going to look at another inlet. We saw one tree by itself for half a block in any direction. There were no other trees. One tree by itself had an odd shape where a couple streets came together, not at 90 degrees. And below that tree, people all around it sitting in the shade. They were construction workers wearing their safety vests. There was one city employee, not with the guy that I was with, but another department. And then there were some unhoused people. And I would say they're probably, I'm making up the number if I have to, but half a dozen to a dozen people sharing this shade tree. And some of them were having lunch, some of them were taking a drink, some were just laying down resting. As we walked by that tree to go look at a little bioretention area, some lady, a representative of the group unofficially, came over and said, "Please don't take our tree." And I was like, "What?" I asked her, "What, excuse me?" She said, "It looks like y'all are down here looking to make some changes, and please do not take that tree." And I looked at her and I thought that was just kind of heartbreaking that of her whole plight, her whole situation that day, the thing she cared about most was that tree and the respite it provided, the shade it provided, and the comfort it provided. And I talked to the city guy after we walked away from them and said, man, that if that doesn't pull your heartstrings and kind of emphasize the importance of trees and the difference it can make,
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
tells a story.
Yeah, we take a lot of things for granted. Never thought I'd say we actually take trees for granted, but we do. That just kind of proves the point, and that's just a fraction of what trees are doing in urban areas. Providing shade for people on days like we've had in the summertime. And like I said earlier, that's just scratching the surface of what trees in urban areas are going to be able to provide for us long term.
And we can connect it to our stormwater requirements. That's how we get people to approve it and to design it and build it and incorporate it. I think it works. So good job today, Joe.
Absolutely,
Thanks for
absolutely.
joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you, guys.